Hi, my name is Lorelei, and I'm an artist living in New York. So I am born and raised in Brooklyn. I've been in New York my entire life. Went to high school. Wasn't really artistically inclined until high school. And I think the only reason that really started happening was because I was just like a really voracious reader. I pretty much read everything that I could get my hands on. And that was kind of like my gateway to getting into art because I just had this really intense love of words. And it was so it was really nice to find other artists and like writers who connected to that and used their words to just capture all of these fantastic emotions and sometimes not so fantastic, and they just made it into art. And what also really got me into art was that I struggle with depression, so it was also just so comforting to find writers who would touch on things like depression and just like being in a really dark headspace, and they were able to put that down on paper and capture it in a way that I just went, oh my god, how did they know that that's how I felt? And then not even that, it just made it seem like it was okay to have these really raw, unpretty feelings, and it's okay, and other people will connect to them, and other people will find something in that, and that's something that really moved me. And I think that's probably why I started shifting into theater after that, because I just really loved getting lost in somebody else for a while. As somebody who's really in my head, it was really nice to take a break and just be somebody else for a little bit. But also being in theater really just helped me deeper. It helped me connect to those deeper emotions even more, because it's one thing to have them, and then it's another thing to act them out in front of people. It's kind of like sort of like an emotional exorcism of sorts, because you're embracing these things and then you're putting them out into the world. And then from there, I graduated college, and after I graduated, I at this time I got more into my artwork, so I moved away from theater and was doing more art, more painting, more drawings and portraits. And that's something that I found I really loved. My hands are usually very active, and I like to stare at people and really memorize faces, so art was something that I could kind of be a voyeur and observe other people and then translate that into my own version of that. But the thing that kind of frustrated me is that I had friends saying to me, what good is doing all this art if you're not putting it out into the world? And something about that just really kind of got to me, and it just made me think, oh, well, I'm not a real artist unless I'm really putting my work out there, and by putting it out there, I'm not a real artist unless I'm selling it, because what good is art being out in the world if nobody wants to own it? So after I graduated, I got really into showing my work, and people did buy it, which was great, and it's kind of like reaffirming as an artist when people connect so deeply with your work that they want to own it. But then on the other hand, it sort of, if you don't do it right, it takes away the pleasure of art for its own sake. And that kind of took away from the source of my creativity. And that's how I got into figure modeling, because I was really blocked artistically, and I needed something that would be a shift and would give that artistic part of my brain that was blocked because it was so focused on trying to survive as an artist in New York. It would give it a rest, and it would also just put me in my body, which is something that I really need to get out of my head. And so I started working with a few photographers who connected me with artists that were looking for figure models. And then people started reaching out to me, which was really great. And now, like 3 years later, and like 7 months into being freelance, I am here now. My experience being freelance thus far, there's lots of positives and negatives. Like the biggest positive is that I work for myself, and that is a fantastically freeing feeling. It's so freeing to be able to agree to projects that you want to do just because you want to do them, and there's no one over your head kind of saying like, oh, you have to do this specific thing or this specific look or work with these specific people. I can just agree to do what I want, and that's amazing. And I have a sense of autonomy and a sense of really knowing my worth in a way that I did not have when I would do office jobs, because I feel that and I mean, you know, everybody's experience is different, but my personal experiences have been that I never really worked with a company where I felt valued. I feel like office jobs for me, they're draining. The spaces that I worked in, I put in all this time and all this effort, and at the end of the day, I never really felt like people appreciated what I did. So being freelance is really freeing in that way, but at the same time, that freedom comes with a price, because in being freelance, you have to really take charge of your own career. You have to wear lots of different hats. You're kind of like your own manager, your own agent, your own stylist, your own makeup artist, your own tax person, all of that stuff, which is really, really stressful. And also the thing that it's been teaching me to really stick to and value my own worth. Because I think what happens being freelance, especially being a freelance model, is that people want you for specific projects, or they want you for your look, or they want you for the way in which they perceive you. But then when it comes down to money and brass tacks, that's where things get really sticky. And there's nothing wrong with negotiating, but at the same time, there is a fine line between negotiating and being taken advantage of. And I feel like I am slowly but surely learning to ride that line, and also learning to say no. It can be really hard when you want to work with people, but at the same time, it's like you can't lower your rate or yourself just to work with somebody and make somebody else happy. Because at the same time, it's like you're making somebody else happy, but you're also still suffering in the long run. So freelancing is definitely teaching me to value and stick to my guns when it comes to my worth and my skill set and my experience. I've definitely preferred working with artists. I kind of prefer being approached as a muse for a certain artistic project where it comes to someone drawing or painting or something like that, because I feel like artists, and especially those that draw or paint or sculpt or anything in that sort of creative realm, really have an appreciation for the fact that you being their muse is work. And not only is it work, it's hard work. I feel like I've had more artists tell me, like, oh, thank you so much for what you did. I totally understand that it's not easy holding this pose for that long, remembering the pose, getting back into position, but you do it for me, and I really appreciate that. And I don't really get that from a lot of photographers, I've noticed. I feel like it's also in part because photography can be very, very much a one-time thing. You meet with somebody, you like them, they like you have an idea, you shoot it, edit it, and it's out there in the world. But when you're working with an artist, that kind of becomes an extended relationship, because you're sharing space with another human being, and there's no way that you can't talk to them for like 3.5 hours while they're drawing you. So you really kind of develop a sense of camaraderie. You learn about them, they learn about you, and in learning about each other, you really develop an appreciation for what the other person is doing. I think it's kind of a tricky dynamic working as a female nude art model, because I feel like there is this really wonderful sense of freedom, because it's like you as a woman coming into your body and embracing that, and not only embracing that for yourself, but embracing that and being a muse for somebody else. But there's also the flip side of that, when even if it's something that fulfills you artistically and fulfills you on a personal level, there still is that thing of it being a job. And a job that, yes, anybody can do, but the people who do it well do it because they have a specific set of skills. They have skills, they have experience. And I think that there's just this really tricky thing about being a model and being a muse, but also being a human being with bills, because then it's like when people approach you and they go, you know, I really love your look, I really love this and that about you, I'd love to work with you, and you go, great, I really love your work too, here are my rates. Suddenly it's just like radio silence on the other end. And I feel like it's because people feel like, oh, well, you're comfortable being nude, so you know, you're doing this for the art. And it's like, yes, I am doing this for the art, but I'm a human being who has to support themselves too. And And sometimes it makes me really sad when there's people that I want to work with, and especially when it comes to larger companies who I know have money. It's different when it's like another artist saying like, I don't have much, but here, let's negotiate, versus a company that wants you for your specific look, but then saying, you know what, I can't pay you for this thing I want you to do, but you'll have all of this exposure. Those are situations that really frustrate me, because you have the money to pay me for this skill that you are asking me to actively use, but you're refusing to. You want me for this thing, but you want me to do it for free. And it's just like, what's the sense in that? So I think part of the frustration for me is that, yes, I'm a model. Yes, I enjoy being a muse. Yes, I enjoy being a woman who enjoys her body and enjoys being nude. But I also don't want to feel forced to have to do that for free just because it's something I enjoy doing it. So I think that that's something that is definitely worth becoming a larger conversation in the artistic community.
100%. Yeah.